Dr. Kelso, I was able to locate the discharge form he wanted.
She's a beauty, isn't she, Ted? My pride and joy. I just had her varnished, so don't touch.
No.
Yeah, hand it over. Ted, you're a simpleton.
That's funny, because I thought I was rubber and you were glue.
Idiot.
Boing.
Principal Bob, you called?
Can you explain this?
It appears to be a wiring problem. Either way, second floor desperately needs a new computer.
Boing.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Wadcast. I know things got started off a little bit differently tonight, but, well, let's start with the introductions. I'm Josh. You can find me on Twitter at SkidComic, and my partner in crime is none other than the Brandon. Brandon,
what
how are you
is
doing?
up, everybody? I'm good. How you doing?
You know, for the most part, all things considered, doing pretty well, but we did, get some sad news today. And, well, what you heard at the top of the show was a short little scene from Scrubs. Brandon, how about you explain why we played that?
Yeah. So for those of you that do not know, Sam Lloyd, the actor that played Ted in Scrubs, the very depressed and bullied, but absolutely hysterical and lovable lawyer oh God, I can't remember the name of the hospital. It's on the tip of my head.
Sacred Heart.
Sacred Heart, that's it. The lawyer at Sacred Heart Hospital, he played that lawyer, passed away today due to complications from, I believe, cancer caused by a brain tumor that was diagnosed last year. So he lost the fight and unfortunately passed away from it today. So really sad moment. Great actor. He's been in numerous other roles, from Galaxy Quest, Flubber, Rising Sun. He's been in so many things over the years, but honestly, Scrubs is what he is probably most recognized in from the longevity of the role.
And it was such a great show. He was one of the things that made it great. It was definitely one of the better ensembles in the last 20 years. I think that can go unargued. It was such a great show. And he will be missed, as someone else says on their show. Not trying to rip you off, Kev. Just, it was the first thing that popped into my head. But we have a show to do. We have a regularly scheduled show to do. And since we are the odd ones, that's basically saying this is an odd-numbered episode, which means it's just me and Brandon today. We bring the guests on the even-numbered episodes. This is number 3. We're in tonight's show. We're going to talk about our writing processes. But we're not going to jump into that immediately. There's other stuff to talk about. We don't want to just...
Can I actually talk about, real quick, can I actually talk about this movie that I saw this week?
Absolutely.
Okay. So anyone that listens to this knows by now that the whole point of what we're trying to do is we like to discuss the more independent films and writers, directors, producers, all those people that make, the independent section of filmmaking possible. Because honestly, independent is, if you want substance, that's where it's at. And I watched this movie this week that struck a chord with me, and also made me feel really fucking old. But at the same time, it was a very, very nice film. It's very reminiscent of something that John Hughes would make. I guess I don't want to say it was inspired by John Hughes, but there's this film Relish on Amazon. It's written and directed by this gentleman, Justin Ward. He's done a lot of things with directing UFC over the years and stuff like that. But watching Relish, it's about these groups of kids that are put into an alternative to a mental health ward. They've all gotten in their fair share of trouble, and they decided to break out of this facility that they're living at to go to this Dreamland music festival. They meet a clothing store clerk. I cannot remember the name of the character. But it was played by none other than Brian Wallace, the gentleman that's playing Simon in Bad Agent. But I want to talk about the kids in this film. These kids, first off, Justin, if you're listening to this, I've got to say, well done. I mean, just it was a very well done film. I was drawn into it from start to finish. But you have the kids that play the patients. Tyler DiChiara plays Kai. Hannah Hayes plays this girl Aspen. Kai is this born a female, transgender, identifies as a boy, stuff like that. Kind of sensitive, dismissive stuff like that. A very profound character. Lots of struggle, lots of inner turmoil, just everything that I assume that transgender kids deal with today. I know very little about this. I'm naive and ignorant as hell towards it. I can admit that. There's a lot that I have yet to learn about this issue. But then there's also Hannah Hayes, who plays a kind of like a social media influencer. Really, her girl can't get past the front of her nose. She's just really stuck on herself. Matthias Ward plays this guy, Levy, kind of like this really kind of rough around the edges, drug addict. And then you have Rio Mangini plays this kid, Theo, who has severe psychiatric issues and is trying to connect but doesn't know how to connect. And you kind of see this whole bond throughout the film between him and Levy, who starts off as kind of like a bully figure towards him. And then this girl, Chelsea Zhang, plays this really oddball girl who is hell-bent on being abducted by aliens and taken away from Earth to live away from humanity. These kids are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Beautiful acting. And honestly, like I said, we want to dedicate a lot of our time towards talking about the independent factor or sector, whatever you want to call it. And this is a prime example of independent films that are actually very much worth watching, and I'd rather watch this as opposed to the same file that comes out of big studios all over the world, because it just doesn't really have the same substance, and you can't really substitute it for the acting in this. So there's the other cast members are amazing. The kid that played this character, Robbie Nardozzi. Robbie was played by Matthew Nardozzi. Kind of like wants to impress the heads of this place. He works for this mental ward, and so he's trying to go round everybody up on his own. But I would honestly recommend you guys watch it. I really would. It's on Amazon. I don't know how much it is to purchase it, or even rent it, but it's definitely worth the money as opposed to spending your money going out to the theaters when they open back up. Let me rephrase that. While you're quarantined, watch the damn film. It's good. That's all I got on that one.
And you know what? While you're quarantined, even after you're quarantined, make a little bit of an effort to watch some of these lesser-known films. If you're quarantined, if you're not quarantined, if you're working, everything else, watch the damn film. If you have teenagers that are struggling with I guess some kind of identity crisis, as a lot of teenagers do tend to suffer through, watch the damn film. This could be very powerful for teenage kids to watch. It really could be, and I strongly recommend it. Just for the sake of letting those kids know that they're not alone. Watch the fucking film. It's absolutely phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to say how it ended, but there's a post credits thing that threw me off a little bit, but it was cute. The whole film is actually very well done. Profound. I don't know what the hell I was about to say. It was good. So, Relish, written and directed by Justin Ward, starring Tyler DiChiara. And Tyler, I'm sorry if you're listening. I hope I pronounced your name right. Tyler DiChiara, Hannah Hayes, Matthias Ward, Rio Mangini, and Chelsea Zhang. Guys, congratulations. You were the star of this movie. Fantastic. Brian did a great job in being an adult that
actually the only adult in the entire film that truly respected and try to meet the kids on their level. So all around great film. But okay, so moving on.
I'm going to go say right now that it should be something we do every week. Every week we should each have one indie film to suggest that our listeners watch. And then we really, really try to push, paying a little something to rent it or buy it rather than, pirating it. Let's uplift each other in this industry, right?
Absolutely.
So before we get into our writing processes, I just want to say hey to Ben, who's in our chat room right now. If you have any questions, feel free to light up the chat. Let's see what you got. Whoever's in there, say hello, give us some questions. And Brandon, how about you kick off our little discussion about our writing processes? Not to be confused with writing rituals. We're not talking about, okay, before I sit down to write, I light 3 candles, I eat a piece of my favorite type of cheesecake, and then I say the Lord's Prayer 7 times backwards. No, different. That's rituals. We're talking processes. The creative thing that gets your juices flowing. So, Brandon, what do you do? What is your process for writing the magic that you do?
You don't want to go first on this one? You want me to go first?
Well, we can break it up step by step. Like, what do you come up with first? Do you come up with the story first, a character first, maybe even a title first? What is the first step?
Honestly, the title is something that I don't even solidify till the end. Everything is working title. If I'm having a hard time writing the script, it is literally titled "This Fucking Thing."
Love to see the sequel.
Not to say that I don't love writing. It's just like I don't love coming up with the title because a title can make or break a reader's interest in the script. For fuck's sake, The Room by Tommy Wiseau. You hear The Room and you're like, oh, well, like the movie had nothing to fucking do with The Room. It had nothing to do with The Room, unless you're talking about The Room where he, I don't know, has sex with his wife's belly button, I think, because he was really high up there during the lovemaking scenes.
There were some mechanics problems with that.
And physics don't line up, or like, it's also the same room where he kills himself. So maybe that's what
spoilers.
The room is.
Spoilers.
But no, listen, guys, I'll spoil the movie for you. Don't watch it.
No, absolutely watch it. You have to watch it.
Oh God, my Lord! If you watch it, have a drink, take a shot every time there is an overly exaggerated line or bad acting, or even better, take a shot every single time you hear the words "Oh hi, Mark."
Oh hi, Mark.
Oh hi, Mark. But no, so basically the title never comes first. Most of my writing process is really, if I see something or if I think of something, I have a story to tell, I try to build up this whole fantastical or just really messed up world around this character, and then I kind of think of the story. But I always write, as backwards as this is, I write the ending first to figure out where everything ends up and how things end up. And then I start off at the beginning, and then that's when I kind of like work through the process. Sometimes I do an outline, sometimes I don't, and I'm kicking myself the whole time, and then I cave and do an outline. So story, then the outline, and scripts. But also I have a magic 8-ball. I use that quite often, which is, not even
a little bit of
I use the magic 8-ball all the time.
A little bit of insider behind the scenes stuff for you fans of the Bad Agent, which you can still find on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's still on Amazon. It's on Amazon. It's Bad Agent is for free on Amazon, so and it's 9 minutes, so you don't have to torture yourself long watching it. Just it's 9 minutes. Go check it out. But and yeah, I think you've actually heard me use the Magic 8 Ball before on the phone, and also have seen me do it in person. So yeah,
and it was pretty cool to see it put into Bad Agent. It's kind of an homage to you narcissist. Wait, what was that?
All right. So what about you? What's your writing process?
I have several. It depends on what first inspires me, because sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes I come up with a title for something and I think, what would the story be behind that title? I'm not saying the title's a keeper, but sometimes that title can at least get a process started, and I'll wind up changing it later. But just a simple title that says kind of what is going on in the story. And sometimes a character reaches out and grabs me, and I want to know what their story is. What kind of life do they lead? So I'll start expanding on that, whether it's through notes or whether it's just sitting down and writing. And other times, like you said, I'll have a problem in mind and want to know how someone would overcome it, and then flesh that out around the problem. So it really depends on where the spark comes from that, defines which process I'm going to use. And like you, most of the time I start off with the ending first, because I want to know where I'm going. That's how you build up to that. That's how everything means something, because you're teasing it throughout the story.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
If you don't know where you're going, how do you tie everything up nice and neat, a nice little bow at the end? Now, I will say, because Brandon and I, we've talked about this before, when I'm writing, especially dialogue, maybe I'm nuts. Maybe some of you will out there will understand, be sympathetic. But I'll start writing, and my brain will completely shut down. I know, what's he talking about, right? No, my brain will shut down, and instead of me coming up with ideas for what's happening, it feels like that I am just transcribing something that's already happened. That I have no control over what's going on, that I'm just recording the story for posterity. And it basically starts writing itself.
Can I say one thing real quick about the whole writing process, though?
Yeah.
If you piss me off and I find out your name, you're going to make it into a script in a very bad way. I mean, that's just...
That's an easy way to come up with character names.
Well, Jake. Okay, guys, I'm not going to share too much, but out of curiosity, Josh and I, since we used to write together, we actually, along with Brian, we've gotten together to actually write out a season for Bad Agent, and we actually wrote the ending first. We discussed the ending and how we want it to end. So we already had that planned. But Jake is based off of a guy that I think is an absolute cunt of a human being. And you came up with Carmela. I don't know who the hell that is. But Jake is just an absolute asshole. And the character Bruce is an asshole. And they made their ways into the scripts. So Jake is getting off a little easy. Bruce is still going down with the ship. But still. So yeah, be nice to people, because you never know who's a writer.
That's
we
fair.
kill you in our imaginations. You will make it into a zombie film. Trust me.
I have to say the characters that came from my brain doing the Bad Agent writing, none of them are actually based on people I know, and they're not based on other people's creations. What's that?
Fair enough.
They are based on other people that I have observed from an outsider's kind of perspective.
Well, you see, and there's other characters that we've written together in the past that are based off of people, not even in bad ways, but there
Sometimes
are people
very
that
flattering
there are
ways.
people we've written in the past with the Game Store series that we wrote an entire episode, an entire season with once again with Brandon Sparks. I think you actually ended up basing a lot of that character TC on me. Like a lot of that character, like I mean, you were like you were hell bent on me playing this character when you thought that I really wanted to do any acting to begin with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But like so we also style a lot of. Would you say it's fair to say that we also, for people that we know, that we style a lot of the dialogue and mannerisms and personalities off of those people because they can be easier to interact, but you can also imagine them interacting with other people that you know that they do not know. And it comes off as kind of like a smooth transition. Would you say that would be a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that would be absolutely fair. Come to think of it, when there's a pilot episode of a show that you watch and everything seems kind of, I don't know, dry, like things need oil. I guess that would be the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But then as the series goes on, things start loosening up and people get into their characters. I thought that was the way, but from what you just said, maybe I had the thinking wrong. Maybe it's more the writers are starting to hone in on the actor and their personality and getting the character closer to what is happening in real life. Because the pilot was written before you came on board, and the character was my answer to Randall from Clerks, essentially.
Yeah.
He had all the cool lines. It was awesome. But then I met you, and it's like, wait, no, they're the same person. So it was easy to take your behaviors and your thought patterns and, meld them with the character because, yeah, you were the same guy. Before you go on, I do want to, we have a question in the chat. Ben says, I find that emotions, depending on whatever state it is in, heavily impacts my creativity and art or writing, no matter if I want them to or not. Have you guys experienced this before, and how often does it happen to you? Basically, how does your emotion affect what you're doing creatively?
It really. Are you asking me, or did you want to take this one?
Well, I'm asking you first, and then I'll respond.
Okay. All right. Well, Ben, basically, my emotions it's very simple. Like I write primarily a lot of my screenplays. I try to have as much emotion involved in my script as possible. Usually, they're a bunch of dick and fart jokes. But I like to throw like the gut punching, like dramatic end. Think of like very Judd Apatow. So it really depends on the mentality of the characters. Like I like to try to get into like the psychology of the characters as much as possible, and at least experience as close to their mental whatever challenges or struggles that they have or are going through in that scene. I try to experience it as well. If I'm not immediately experiencing it, I try to channel it somehow through like memories of something I might have experienced that was similar to that. But if I'm just not if I'm writing a scene where someone is absolutely depressed and I'm having like the best day of my life, or I'm too busy like laughing at something, or if I can't stop laughing at something, then I don't write that scene. I think of a different thing to write, which may not be the go-to for a lot of people. But I try to keep my emotions as involved with what I'm writing as possible. It's a lot like songwriting. You want to write something, to quote Adam Sandler in Wedding Singer, he said he's always wanted to write a song where if you listen to it, you'll be like, man, I know what that guy was thinking when he wrote that. I think that's how it should always be. Like, I mean, I think if you're feeling a certain way, that's what should translate into the paper. That's my thoughts. May not be a popular one, but that's mine. What about you, Josh?
Well, Ben responded in the chat. your personal emotions. If you're angry or stressed, does it create a mental block where you cannot think straight? Do your emotions sometimes get in the way of your creativity?
Oh, did I misunderstand the question the first time?
I think I might have said it wrong.
Okay. It can, yeah. Like that can very, very well happen. Like if I'm trying to write something that's supposed to be funny, it's like, okay, I'm just going to talk about this. I wrote this script called Missionary Position, and it's supposed to be a comedy. But I think I was in such a shitty mood when I wrote it that it comes off so incredibly mean. It spills
like
onto the page. It's a very uncomfortable experience. Like I read it, I'm like, wow, man, this isn't funny at all. Like this, I think I was in a bad mood.
Definitely a bad place.
It can translate if it doesn't cause a mental block or a writer's block, if you will. If it doesn't cause any of that, it can cause a very, very, very bad translation of what you're thinking into what's being written. It's like when you get pissed off in a fight, you never talk to the person that you're pissed off at while you're pissed at them, because things you don't even know that you're thinking will spill right the fuck out of your mouth. Same thing goes for writing. Unless it's an angry rant like via a Marriage Story, I think it's called, with
Adam Driver and
Scarlett Johansson. The scene where they're having like that blowout fight. That's something where I would want to be pissed off about something, because that's where I could channel that anger.
God, that was such.
If I was writing American Pie and I was pissed off, it wouldn't come off as American Pie. So.
And that's when Stifler shot everybody.
Huh?
I said, and that's when Stifler shot everybody.
Took everyone out with a Stiffmeister, huh?
Well, personally, we've talked about this on the show, or maybe we didn't. I don't recall. There's been so many episodes, I don't remember what happened. You see, I also had a time in my life where, I don't want to say it was writer's block exactly, but around the time of my separation and subsequent divorce, I was drained. I was absolutely drained. Emotionally, physically, still physically, and that's why I'm gaining weight, you know what I'm saying? But I was just, there was nothing there. I had nothing to contribute. No stories, nothing.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I was podcasting at the time. You know, it's one of the things we did before on a different show, except it was more topical, current eventy stuff. And when I left there, I started Semicore, and that is 5 years old this year. And then Ben, who's in the chat right now, we started the Backstage Slam because we've known each other for, 17 years. And
you had other men before me?
Not necessarily writing wise, but definitely creatively.
Oh wow, you whore. Okay, go ahead. Seriously, go ahead. Sorry, I'll shut up.
Ben and I met in the Army. We love wrestling. That's right. Piggybacking off of what Emmy Award winner Mark Hensley said last week on this show, there's no such thing as guilty pleasures. I like what I like. You can get over it. So we started doing a wrestling podcast. That was the kind of the beginning of, okay, there's people out there that not only care about my well-being, but, actually give a damn about what's in my head. And then you, Brandon, sir, we started batting around ideas. Next thing you know, you take the ball and just run it all the way home with Bad Agent and come back at me and say, hey, let's do some more of that. And I'm like, oh yeah, Tiger, let's do that.
So would you say that I am the wind beneath your wings?
You are definitely the fart out of my butt.
I'll take it. Propulsion.
So that's over the last, say, 5 years or so, around the start of Semichords, when I really started feeling creative again. When you and I were writing, that's when I felt like I have stories again. And like we mentioned before, well, I don't think I've mentioned on the show, I challenge myself to come up with one new thing creatively every day. Whether it's a premise, whether it's a title, whether it's a character, I need to do one thing. I need to create one thing every day and put it in my notebook. I may never use it, but a writer's best tools are, the ones that he has in his back pocket. Pen and paper, or I guess some other digital means that you can pull from for that next big idea. Like I said, it could just be a few words scribbled down, and next thing you know, you're accepting some sort of award somewhere because you took that idea that you just randomly had one day and decided this could use development. Let's work on this. Let's make it something. And
yeah, idea. Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I don't remember if this came up in the interview with Mark last week or if it was something that I had spoken with him about privately. But do not be afraid to bounce ideas off of people. If you're sitting in a bar sometime in hopefully the not too distant future and you're talking to someone, don't give out the entire premise of everything unless it's copywritten. I mean, it's the chance of someone actually stealing your stuff, it's so incredibly low as it is. But Mark brought up a really good point with I talked to you about this, Josh. Knight Rider. Knight Rider was David Hasselhoff sitting on a plane with somebody, and he just talked about an idea of a talking car. Boom, Knight Rider happened. And now David Hasselhoff is the inflated ego of a cultural icon and pop culture icon, and has been for, God, what, decades. So, yeah, I mean, just any idea that you have, just write the shit out of it. I mean, it's really... Sorry, I was going to get that out there before I forgot about that because we're talking about pens and paper. I got my paper and I lost my pen. So, didn't want to forget that point.
That's fair. We are a little over 33 minutes in, so we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. There are a couple of points I want to touch on before we go, though. The first one being, we had a discussion about a post that, we're in a couple of shared writers groups on Facebook. One of them said that someone had posted something about something they're writing, and someone responded with the BS story.
The 14-day challenge. That's what it was. I can actually pull this up real quick. This girl that I know that worked on Mark's film, The Man Who Loved Flowers. She was a production assistant. She did a lot of stuff, but she has her own group on Facebook. I'll post it in the comments. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. Production resource group or something like that. I've got to look it up. But it's called Write a Movie Script in 14 Days. Monday through Sunday 1 week, and then Monday through Sunday the next week. I'll post this on our Facebook, on our website, everything else as well. But this guy responds, okay? And he's talking about how it takes 2 to 3 years to write a really good story that will last for years to come, which is bullshit. It doesn't take 2 to 3 years to write anything. No offense to the guy. I'm sure whatever he's got is probably his baby. Not going to badmouth anybody. That's not what I do. But I will say that my point to him was, you can have an amazing idea for a film, and it can completely revitalize an entire genre that can make this particular film last for a couple of years, a couple decades, over a decade, however long. And then you can have a complete shit film that had years and years and years and years of production based off of a novel and everything else. It could be like the next big Star Wars. And I'm talking about Battlefield Battlefield Earth. Shit, man. Scream is the movie I was talking about in this point, where it was written in, I think, 2 to 3 days by a desperate Kevin Williamson who had no money for rent, borrowing money from friends and family. He wrote Scream in 3 days in a shack in the desert. And in those 3 days, he had a feature-length script called Scary Movie, and he had 2 treatments for 2 sequels. And it was sold almost immediately. And it's gone on to launch his entire career as a writer, producer, and director. And now Scream, Ghostface himself is instantly recognizable through movies and TV shows and stuff like that. So
straight up iconic.
Yeah, exactly. And completely revamped the slasher franchise as it was. So I mean, it just brought it back to life. Versus Battlefield Earth, which we all know the set into that story. It's kind of like the analogy I was going to use would be horrible. I will not use it, but it's bad. So yeah. I'm going to post this on the website.
All right.
So 2 more. How about 2 more points here? Like you and I talked about this. I'll recommend. I'll reference the books that I refer to. Can you discuss the? I think we had talked about this. Writing programs, ones that you can pay for, and also ones that are free for people that actually want to get into screenwriting and not using Microsoft Word. Because come on, guys. Format the shit. So,
I mean, generally, as a rule, we writers are a lazy bunch and shouldn't be manually formatting your scripts. It takes forever.
It does, but there's professional screenwriting software you can get for free online. They'll instantly format it for the most part. You want to talk about those, and I'll bring up the reference materials?
Oh, sure. You want me to start?
Yeah, I'll let you start. Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Anyway.
I'm going to work backwards here in what I've been using. Well, first, I'm going to go ahead and say that over the course of the quarantine, as money comes and goes and whatnot, but over the course of quarantine, I have decided to invest in myself. I actually upgraded to Final Draft and found it to be excellent. Definitely worth the money if you have the money. If you don't, the last one that I used, free software called Trelby. It's easy to find. Just search up Trelby screenwriting software, and it works. For the formatting. That's really the biggest issue when it comes to writing in this format is the formatting. So Trelby helps out a lot. It doesn't have a lot of tools to make the process easier, but when it comes to basic formatting, it's got it. And before that, I was using Celtics, that is CELTX. It is now a cloud-based writing software, and unfortunately, when they made the transition, they took away a lot of the tools that made it the premier free program for writing. But it still does its job and keeps everything saved to the cloud, so you can basically, you have a PC, you log on, you have a laptop, you log on, everything's still there. So if you're looking for something with cloud saving capabilities that you can log into from any computer, Celtics, it's probably the way to go if you're not looking to spend money. And I want to give a nice shout out, a little rest in peace mention to the Amazon creative software. A lot of people didn't really know about it, but it was excellent. I would say it rivals Final Draft, or at least it did. It was a super awesome writing software that did all of the formatting and had all of the, nice little tools that you could use to keep track of character scenes and everything. It was wonderful, and it was free. Plus, when you were done, if you felt like your product was, up to par with industry standards, there was a button you could click that would submit it to Amazon Studios for, perusal. So that was awesome. It's like, okay, I'm going to finish this up and click. Do I know if, there were any legal requirements or issues when it came to the rights of the, your creative item? I don't know. Or your script? Do I know what happened to it after you hit submit, or who owns it or anything? No. Maybe that's one of the reasons it went away. But I just thought it was cool at the time, and I was bummed to see it go because it was awesome. It was free, and it gave me a glimmer of hope that if I hit submit, to Amazon Studios, that who knows, maybe they would take it and run with it and make awesome videos on Amazon Prime. I don't know. But yeah, those are the programs that I use, and one shout out to one that's not with us anymore. So yeah, Brandon, tell us about your reference materials.
Okay, and I know we're a little over time right now, but I'll make this quick. I've got two that I use. One I use more than the other. Save the Cat, which is it's not a bad book. It's really not. It's written by the late Blake Snyder. It's called Save the Cat, the last book on screenwriting you'll ever need. And I've used it a few times, but it's not. Again, it's not bad, but it just doesn't have what I personally find useful for everything in it. The one I've been going to, and this dates back to 2006 when I was in film school, when I was introduced to me by my teacher, Yves Martin. It's a book called The Screenwriter's Bible. Not exactly an obscure title. It's very well known, but there's multiple editions of it. It's been updated so many times. But it's The Screenwriter's Bible by David Trottier. I use that thing for so many. And Ben, I'll throw this out there to you since you asked a question about this kind of stuff. If I have writer's block, if I have things I'm trying to figure out a direction of the story, anything of that nature, I refer to the Screenwriter's Bible. He touches on damn near everything you'll ever need to even, know about where to go in the next scene or how to write an eye-catching scene. It's really a good read. I've read it like I would read, Jurassic Park. I've read the book cover to cover multiple times. Character psychology sheets, action sheets, diagrams. It shows you how to write a query letter to send out to agents, managers, stuff like that. It's actually very, very useful, and it's a strong recommendation. And I also recommend having a Magic 8 Ball by your side. They're magical.
All right.
That sounded like a commercial. We are not sponsored by the Magic 8 Ball.
You know what, Brandon? There's a couple of things I want to ask you off the air. Maybe a couple of promotional ideas. So we'll talk about that in a second and get back to you guys next week if, it flies.
You want to discuss next week's episode?
Before we do,
they're coming into?
There's one more point I wanted to touch on before we go about a Facebook post. And in it, somebody responded with, they told the original poster that, they had a BS story. And we talked about the idea of there being a BS story. I said, I don't believe in BS stories. I don't think they exist. I think every story is worth telling. But I think the idea that I was trying to put out there was more along the lines of, I don't believe in BS stories, just BS storytellers. And we touched on that a little bit with someone saying it takes years to write a great story. Which, of course, like you said, with Scream being the example, or if you want Frankenstein written, over a weekend by Mary Shelley as part of a, what was it, a bet or a contest or something. So I just wanted to piggyback off you and also say that if you have a story, it's worth telling. So tell it. With that being said, let's get into what we're going to do next week. It's an even-numbered week, an even-numbered episode. So who's coming? Who's coming to the table? And are they going to bring alcohol?
Oh, God. If they bring alcohol and the three of us can manage to drink it together, or even one of us drink with the other person, that'll be impressive. He lives in San Francisco. It's going to be Ernest White II. He is the author of the Fly Brother blog that's been around since 2007. And he'll be discussing his travel show for Fly Brother that he's worked really hard to get off the ground. Really super sweet guy, really down to earth. And he's going to talk about everything that he's dealt with, between hitting brick walls, how he's gotten past them, and how he's come about with making this happen. So, and all the headaches that he's had to deal with since then. And if any of you guys are dealing with ideas that you have, any stories that you have, anything at all where you are about to give up and you're thinking that it's not going to go anywhere because you got told no a few times or someone said it's a bad idea, I really think you should tune in next week and listen to this, because it's going to be awesome. It's an amazing story on how he even got this TV show started and how he's gotten it off the ground.
Excellent. So we look forward to that discussion, which I should be a part of next week.
I hope so.
Well, in the meantime, we're going to get our plugs in. If you are on Facebook, why don't you go to the Wadcast, give the page a like. And while you're giving likes away, head over to Semicore Studios. That's my little Facebook page for all the podcasts that I do here at Semicore Studios. You can follow me on Twitter at SkidComic. You can follow the Wadcast at WadcastPod. Go ahead and follow us. Come on. We won't chase you. It's also,
yeah, we're on Twitter. We're on Instagram, Instagram.com/the Wadcast. Or just go on your damn Instagram app. No one uses a computer to go on Instagram. Just go on your Instagram app and type in the Wadcast. You'll see the logo for the show, the Wadcast, writers, actors, directors. Hit follow. There's only 2 pictures on there right now because, we're new. Not a whole lot to post, but I'll be posting pictures tonight of Save the Cat and the Screenwriter's Bible, of which David Trotter was more than gracious in giving us permission to post and discuss. I'll be updating the website tonight with what we discussed today. I'll be more than happy to provide a link to Relish on Amazon. That's pretty much all I've got. So, Josh, you want to go ahead and play us out?
Sure. I guess I can do that. Well, with that being said, this has been the Wadcast episode number 3. I'm Josh. That's Brandon. We look forward to seeing you next week, right here on the Wadcast.